Hey everybody, welcome back to the Off the Bar podcast. My name is Brandon. I'm joined with Ben, and today we are we're talking about a somewhat serious topic, and we're not generalizing in just one sport. We're kind of generalizing sports as a whole. We're not specifically going to talk about one sport. We're just going to generalize it, and we're going to be talking about kind of like the future of sports. It's a kind of interesting topic that Ben and I have been discussing about. We've been talking like how sports are going to look like. Obviously, after their seasons end, how things are going to go back to normal. How are things going to go back to normal? Can we really trust things going back to normal? And kind of just sort of like the overall landscape of how sports are going to be affected by the global pandemic and what's been going on for the past 5-6 months or so.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't think we're going to talk about. We're not going to do sport by sport, but honestly, I think, to some degree, sports are going to come back next season. I think a lot of leagues are going to look at what the NBA has done and sort of that bubble aspect. I think football's in talks to do that, trying to make it in a bubble. Just so they can get everyone back. I think a lot of college teams are opting out to play. I think Pac-12 just came out saying that they're not playing.
Well, didn't they say they're not playing if there aren't like some standards met or something?
I don't know. I just saw the headline. I really didn't read it further into it, but I think you're right on that. Obviously, baseball's coming back, but honestly, their protocol isn't the smartest, and it's not the safest for the players either. I'm not surprised more players haven't opted out. I know they wanted to play.
The whole Miami
pretty much half team. No, for real, but like half their team had the Marlins. Pretty much half their team got coronavirus,
and they're still on top in July and August now.
I know a few players also opted out, so they're pretty much decimated. I think baseball is one case away from shutting down entirely. I think what the NBA is doing is it's correct. Putting them in a bubble, testing them daily, making sure that they're not interacting with anyone besides themselves. Making sure safety precautions, having them stay 6 feet apart, having them somewhat socially distanced. Test to see if they have it or not. Ben, how do you see teams modeling somewhat of what the NBA is doing?
I think personally, and I'm going to only talk about sports in America because I think England's got it with soccer. They're testing daily. They're sitting away 6 feet apart. I know it seems all to be a show, but they haven't seen any cases.
Right, no, in a global stance, right.
In England, I mean, they haven't done quite as well as the rest of the world, or the rest of Europe has with the virus. But yeah, I think.
But now it's more controlled.
Yeah, with England, I think it's a lot better. Well, at least they're able to travel to to different stadiums without getting corona, because it seemed like for the last last month or two that they didn't get any cases.
Right, and now I think they're now more confident to play the Champions League and the Europa League games, just knowing that
they'll probably be okay.
They'll be okay, just because in Europe, I'm not saying it's minimalized, but it now seems like things are starting to go back to some controlled way where people are still staying safe. I mean, the virus is still a big factor, obviously.
Right.
But I think but people are still staying safe. They're staying cautious. I think a lot of people are taking this more seriously than here in America, which
hasn't been the best. Let's just generalize about that. So in America, really, there's only two things that are doing it totally correctly right now, and that's the MLS and the NBA. They're testing daily. They're quarantining everyone. They have that kind of break protocol, the bubble. You're going to be kind of not suspended, but you'll have to sit out in quarantine. So I think they've done an incredible job. I think because they had a lot of players who did test positive for it. I mean, I can literally remember the time when Woj tweeted out that the NBA was canceled. And then the Heat lost like 20 minutes later, and I was like, why couldn't we just cancel it then? But no, to be completely honest, I mean, I think they've done incredibly well, but I don't know, like, I joke around and say that Texas, they've canceled Friday Night Lights because they said that there's going to be no high school football.
Yeah.
And I think, personally, you have to look at it, and I think with college and high school, you have to be very careful. Because you have seniors who are going to go into their final year, and look, I'm from Miami, so I know, like, for me, like, the University of Miami, they have, like, Quincy Roche and a lot of really good seniors coming in and saying they could probably push the needle and play incredibly well.
Right.
I mean, we have, I forgot his name, I really can't remember, but we have someone who's in, like, a lot of people's top 5. So, and he's a senior, so there
is a need for college sports for some players, just to push their draft stock. Now I go to FIU, and to be honest, granted, I opted out. I'm not going back to college, and so I'm just staying at a dorm or anything like that. And I'm assuming that even if football was a big thing, and I used to go to remember games. I used to be able to go and remember games, just because I go to games but I don't remember them.
He gets hit on the head multiple times after the game, so he has really bad memory.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm insinuating. Not the other, not.
No, nothing illegal. What do you mean? No, but yeah, I understand.
So for me, it's a little bit disappointing because granted, I still have one more year of college. After this year, right? I could still, hopefully see more football games or basketball games because I loved going to those, right? Just hanging out with my friends during those games because I go for free because I'm a student, obviously. And, honestly, I think it's great. They're great. They're fun times. So I think if you look at a student athlete's perspective, they probably want to try and play just to boost their draft stock, even if they're coming from a lower, not a top 5 league school.
Especially then, because they don't get a lot of exposure.
Right.
If something happens, yeah.
For FIU, they're in CUSA. So there's a lot of there is a lot of competition to try to boost your draft stock, but maybe an undrafted to a 3rd-day pick or even a 2nd-day pick.
Right. And look, I'm still in high school, so. But the thing is, my high school, their women's basketball team is nationally ranked, and there's a lot of pride that comes in the recruitment because I know they recruit a lot, and we have signing days. We have days where players sign, and it's mostly women's basketball. So, from a perspective of that, look, they're probably going to want to play,
right? And
to be completely honest, selfishly, I would love to see them play because I was very excited for the University of Miami this year because they looked like they were going to probably get into a bowl game and maybe even crack top 25, but it comes down to the health and safety that can be issued out by both.
Right. And you can't necessarily put them in a bubble either, just because how you're gonna manage students being in a bubble, the student aspect of it all, of them taking classes online and trying to study in a bubble while also really focusing on athletics. That's been an issue even regardless of being in a bubble, but at least it was, at least being in a college setting and being in a campus dorm and being with campus surroundings and utilities like advisors and tutors and that kind of stuff, they'll be okay. In a bubble, it's going to be a lot different. Right, so I don't think you can necessarily put students in a bubble.
Yeah, no, you can't. And I think, again, when I was going back to, you have to make sure that not only the NCAA, the athletic part, is going to be locked down, secure safety. Because, to be completely honest, there are going to be no fans this year.
No.
Which could kill some teams, really, in the long run. But I think you also have the aspect of how are they going to treat it at school? Because there are players who, and look, seniors are probably not going to opt out, but there are players who are probably freshmen or
sophomore, right?
Yeah, who are going to say, I don't need to be here. I have 3 more years of eligibility, or 2 more years of eligibility.
Yeah.
So, there is that aspect as well. And I think, personally, it has to come down to not only the NCAA, but, school boards all across the country. Because if players start opting out, there's going to be less incentive for more players to play.
Right.
Because, like, look, if you have a sophomore that's, like, a quarterback and is going to absolutely kill it this year, no one's going to... And he says, oh, I don't need to be here. And then no one's going to want to play because you're not going to probably do well with the backup quarterback.
Right.
Except if your backup quarterback is Tua Tagovailoa.
So, no, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how NCAA and I guess even high school football or even high school sports in general move forward from this. I mean... We would see with the NHL now they're in the playoffs and they're in Edmonton and Toronto, like they're breaking up in those two cities just because Canada doesn't have that many doesn't have as many cases as America does, and
not a lot of Americans really like hockey. So
I mean, yeah, it's true. I mean, granted, hockey is still playing in a bubble as well, so it's honestly it's very interesting to see the fact. The fact that not like. That the fact that we have to go to this precaution, that this couldn't have been nipped in the bud from the get-go, somewhat how you see in Europe, like Germany completely shut down, England completely shut down.
Even, and I'd like to say this because I did a project on New Zealand, but they're done. They've reopened.
Yeah,
they don't have any cases.
Australia and New Zealand don't have any cases.
Which, I mean, good on New Zealand, but they're, again, it's apples and oranges when you compare it to the U.S. because New Zealand's population...
Right, it's a lot less.
No, this is a fun fact. New Zealand's population compared to the sheep population is 1 to 5. So there's 5 sheep for every 1 person in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah, I had to do a project on it.
Jesus. All right. So, to put it in perspective, compared to the size of the United States... I mean, if we just go back to baseball real quick, like, they had issues coming up with an agreement to play, right? A lot of players were opting out to begin with. They were saying, like, listen, health and safety, right? They have kids, they have family members, that could be more susceptible to it just because it affects people with different issues. So, players were starting to opt out. And so baseball, they kept negotiating. I mean, obviously it had to do with pay and all that kind of stuff because the players still wanted to get paid the same amount they were going to get paid if they played a 128 game season.
Right.
So I think they came up with some sort of agreement, but like I just don't understand why there wasn't an agreement in place of trying to do something what the NBA or hockey has done and play, or the MLS, and play in a bubble, play in controlled cities, so that way. I know there was talks to be in Arizona or like Nevada, those places, to try to really just control it and just keep it in a bubble like the NBA has done, and which is honestly surprising that the MLB hasn't come out and said that we messed up or anything like that. I honestly do believe that they're one case away from.
Yeah, they're really close. I mean, you look at kind of when the NBA shut down, it was Rudy Gobert, and that was it.
Right. No.
Then it came out that Donovan Mitchell also had it, and like other players started to test positive for it.
Right.
But I think personally, I mean, I mean, we saw Miami came back from the Phillies and had like 20-something cases.
Right.
Of it. So, I don't see them continuing. They're going to be shut down again.
I think so. I don't see this season finishing. And if it does, I honestly see maybe selective teams, like.
Yeah, they're gonna try and do some sort of bracket style, like something that the NBA is already doing.
Right. Maybe some seeding games and then call it and then do the playoffs. Because honestly, with baseball, it's very interesting just because there with so many games going on, they have to keep traveling.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue. Their players are traveling, and they could still be asymptomatic, and yes, they're getting tested daily, and they're still getting they're making sure that they don't have it. But the fact that the Marlins, I'm just going to go back to this because it's why this is a big reason why we're talking about this topic. The Marlins played the Phillies, and then after they played the Phillies, like a few days after, it came out that Marlins players have it.
Yeah.
It honestly, either they have to start streamlining the process a little bit more, or they have to start, or they have to start controlling it and maybe saying, all right, we're not traveling as much. Let's start playing in selected cities.
Yeah, let's shut it down for a little bit. Let's figure this out, and we do it. Because, to be honest, there are only a couple games in. Like, they're not, like, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they have a lot of games. But teams are only a couple games in.
Right.
If they turn around and say, okay,
listen, give us like a few weeks to figure it out, to put them to figure out the few cities that we could put them in.
yeah,
So that way because the big thing is limiting travel.
yeah,
Right.
that's the problem.
Because there's teams all across the all across the nation, so there's a lot of travel going on.
I mean, think about Miami; they had to go all the way up coast, so it makes sense.
Right. If the Miami are playing the Mariners or something, they have to go to Seattle.
Which cross country.
Right.
So, yeah, I think personally, it's not gonna. I don't think personally that, as we've seen with a lot of the, as we've seen with a lot of the MLB players, I don't know, and I don't think they'll probably continue, personally for me. Because, look, they're going to probably be too proud to say, yeah, we messed up, we're not going to play it anymore, but we're going to say, for the safety of the people, due to our system, due to them breaking the system or something, they'll come up with some BS about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think kind of the more important thing to talk about is I don't know if it's really as important, but it's the future. Because you have to look at also, we don't know how long Corona is going to last.
Right. This is something that we've been hearing reports of testing going well for vaccine and testing coming around, and the constant testing for vaccine and showing positive signs and for certain companies and certain industries testing for a vaccine. So, in my opinion, what the future is going to look like is obviously it's either going to, after the season,
sure,
because they are going to have some layoff between seasons, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be important to see if there's going to be a dip in cases, and if there's a vaccine that comes out. I think that's the two most important things.
Are you talking about the MLB or just in general?
Just in general,
okay.
Right? Sports in general, because if you look at it, football's still waiting to come back.
Right, and that's going to be a huge problem.
Right. I mean, I think football should do a bubble, in my opinion.
I don't know how many. The thing is, they're going to have to find this facility to have that.
Right, and it's a lot more for the NBA, so that's why I'm saying they could spread it out in cities.
Yeah.
Again, do it in cities that don't have as many cases.
They could
do facilities, right?
Yeah, I mean, they can probably do section by section. So the AFC East, AFC West, they play all their games first, and then they go and play, and then they go, okay, these, and then they have probably or they just have the AFC East, or the AFC and the NFC. And then they have, okay, you all play this game, you all play these many games against each other in the NFC, we'll figure that out later. But right now, we're only going to play in the AFC. Because with the ACC, or at least I know this because I'm kind of excited about Miami because they've recruited extremely well. They've put it, I think, almost all the games are within the ACC.
Right, I don't think there's going to be a lot of out-of-conference games.
Yeah, there were a couple teams that can play Notre Dame, but besides that, it's just ACC, I think.
Right. So yeah, I think it could be in discussion of what the NFL does do, and I think it's a good topic to get into now, just because. Yeah, I think honestly, like you said, I think that's what hockey's doing is they're splitting up into Edmonton and Toronto, East and West, and that's how they're doing the playoffs, right? Or however hockey is split up. Canadians versus non-Canadians. I don't know, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Boston versus everyone else, because no one likes Boston.
Boston. No, I think it's just interesting because, honestly, with the NFL, I like the idea of an AFC and an NFC and kind of maybe having them split up. Maybe even doing it like...
We're going to reschedule, we're going to do AFC versus NFC, and then we'll do that all the way to the Super Bowl. I think that'll probably be the best idea.
Yeah, probably do that because, again, if you look at Miami's schedule, I think they have to go to Seattle. I keep mentioning Seattle.
They have Seattle. They have the 49ers. They have, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but yeah, they have enough teams that are out of the NFC and out of the AFC, and I think, and again, I'm just generalizing because I only know from Miami's standpoint. You have to look at kind of like, there's another team in the AFC that's playing five teams and another AFC team that's playing 6 teams. So, I think the NFL might turn around and say, okay, the best thing to probably do is just to schedule this just to schedule this as AFC all the way, and then NFC all the way, and then the Super Bowl will be jam-packed with commercials to make up for the revenue that they're going to miss from vending.
I think also it's going to be interesting to see how they do testing.
Yeah.
Because, think about it, NBA, there's 15 players a team, right?
Yeah. Well, it seems like, and sorry to cut you off, but it seems like they're doing round testing. I think,
right.
Because again, I'm sorry with the Miami, but they have 5 or 6 players on COVID lists. They have Matthew Stafford was put on COVID list. The invincible Gardner Minshew was put on COVID list.
Right. They are doing COVID lists, and a lot of players are opting out. Like I saw this weekend, a lot of Patriots players are opting out to not play this season. I think honestly, it's Belichick's way of tanking for Lawrence. But
you opt out. You opt out now. You'll do it.
So I imagine just wearing his hoodie and just be like, "Yeah, I just need you to hop out. Like, listen, don't play.
We don't need you." Cam, we don't need you.
Cam opt out.
Cam seems like the type of person who would sign the contract to prove everyone wrong and then be like, oh no, Corona, and then opt out.
Nah.
I mean, no, he'll prove everyone wrong because I think he'll do incredibly well.
Yeah. No, I honestly, it's a big year for Cam too, right? Like, it's like the impact of players. Like, a lot of players are trying to prove, like, hey, we
have people like Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston who, God forbid Drew Brees gets injured, but if he does,
I heard really the Saints are really leaning towards Taysom Hill, if anything.
Well, yeah, because they're probably familiar with him, and I think but again, we look at kind of there are a lot of players who Eric Flowers, is a guard. He just came off a really good year with Washington. He's gonna probably want to prove that this wasn't a fluke season. I'm gonna do one more year. I'm gonna do another year. Even coaches, again, Miami. Brian Flores wants to build off that first year.
Right. So I think a lot of teams are going to start. I think the season is starting in about 4 or 5 weeks, right?
Around about, yeah, probably.
Yes, there is a need to start getting. Yes, there is a need to start maybe putting a plan in action. But I think it's also going to be interesting because you have a 52-man roster, and you have 32 NFL teams.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do the math, but that's a lot of players to test. And it's a lot more compared to the MLB, compared to NHL, compared to basketball. Like, it's a lot more to test compared to all the other sports. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how they keep going and how they keep testing players and regularly testing them and keeping them in a controlled environment. Because I think a lot of players are still going to want to go out and they're still going to want to still try to live a normal life.
Yeah, I mean, look, not to make fun of the guy who's already being quarantined, but Lou Williams needed wings. It's a normal fact of life that people need to get out. So, we see kind of a lot of people breaking protocol because, look, they're probably tired of staying 2 months away from their families.
In Lou Williams' case, he had a family emergency, and so that's why he went to Atlanta. But also, he went to a strip club.
We've seen, like, Zion, and we've seen, I believe, Montrezl Harrell. They both left because they needed to go back home. Like,
there's some family emergency, something happened, obviously, so for them, it's like, for them, it is a bit of an issue.
Yeah, now, to be honest, I'm going to say it. The Marlins players probably got it just because they needed to be out. They needed to get out.
Well, it's also because, just because we're from Florida, we're from Miami.
And DeSantis, and let's not get political, but DeSantis hasn't done much.
Right, and there really Miami has been talked about as an epicenter for the next big wave. Yeah,
and I'm just saying, like, they probably got it just by going out. Because people need to live their lives, and that's
right. People still need to grocery shop. People still need to
get out of the house once in a while, But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to this. Really, there's the human aspect. There's the scheduling. There's testing. There's kind of finding a good strategy for it. Right. Which we've seen. Not Miami, but the NBA was really lucky to be able to say, okay, we're going to partner with Disney. Same thing with the MLS. But the MLS did something extremely well. They only did seeding games, and they're almost done with their league. right now because they're on to, I believe, the quarterfinals or the semifinals. So I don't keep up with the MLS really. But yeah,
the NBA just started their seeding games. Like, I think honestly, leagues need to model what the NBA and the MLS and NHL have done, just because they're keeping them in a controlled environment. They're keeping their players safe. They're making sure that, hey, listen, if you do go out, you are going to be quarantined.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the big thing here is limiting travel, making sure that, like, listen, if you are going out, like, just letting you know, here's the repercussions. You're going to miss, like, 5 to 10 days, which could lead to you missing multiple games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's probably how it's gonna. I think the only problem with that is, again, the MLS and the NBA were lucky because they were able to find it. They were able to come up with that idea, and then they were able to find it.
Right.
They were able to have enough courts and enough places to stay. I don't know. I don't think the NBA or not the NBA, the Disney in Anaheim has a wide world of sports. But they're going to have to find some place that does. Right. Not wide world of sports, but they're going to have to find some sort of complex that's going to be able to have, all the teams playing at one time, and all the teams living in that one area at one time. And I think that's probably going to be the problem with a lot of this. Well, besides the whole, like if they're going to find something for it, I think that's probably going to be the problem for it.
Right. And I honestly, in my opinion, I think for the future of sports right now, it is going to be just I think it's going to be the fact that there is going to be the standard and protocol of, okay, if they are going to allow fans, it's not going to be full attendance, not a packed house. Like, I think sporting events are not going to become a limited event for the foreseeable future until there's a vaccine for this out. I don't think sports are going back to a normalcy where we all expect, to see our favorite players in person. I still feel like we're going to be missing out on that to a degree.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I don't see potentially even next season, at least for the start. I could see them playing without fans, at least for the start, until it gets eradicated. I think until this is really gone, I don't think we'll be able to see it for the next. Until this is, because there's still always the threat there, Until if we can find a vaccine in the coming weeks, which hopefully we can, we'll be able to. We'll be able to finally turn around and say, all right, well, we can play with fans, which will be such a breath of fresh air because I like the cans and noise, but sometimes it can get annoying. But I think until this really goes away, I don't see it happening, especially for the end of this year, but until maybe even next year. But I think after the beginning of next year, I think we'll finally be okay. Hopefully, like what I mean by in sports terms, so the beginning of the season, kind of. So yeah, I think really, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. If you want to talk about anything else.
No, I mean, listen. These are unforeseen times. These are times that we haven't seen since I can't remember when. Maybe the Spanish flu, 100 years ago. If you want to go even farther than that, I
mean, we look at this is a breakoff of SARS, so you have to look at SARS. But even then, SARS was, I wouldn't say contained in China, but it would stayed in China. Right. So we look at kind of, this is the first major outbreak in probably, over, for decades or not centuries. And I think, I don't think anyone was prepared for this. And of course they weren't, because who would be prepared for a massive outbreak? But, Bill Gates, because he kind of predicted it. But, I think personally, this has to, especially in talking with the sports world, that this has to really get done. This has to, if you want to keep going, because the owners are going to want to make money, the NFL wants to, or the sports, not only the teams, but the leagues are going to want to make money because they don't want to go under. I don't think they will, but they don't want to have any financial trouble paying their players and stuff like that. So I think, they're going to hope that not only, because they're losing a lot of money in game day revenue anyways, but not only that this is going to be eradicated, but that they'll be able to find a plan during that time. We look at, and to kind of finally tie everything up, we looked at how the MLB didn't put in a good plan. We saw how, in Europe it's been a little bit better because they've been able to play without fans and test every day. I think in the MLS and the NBA, of course, they've done well. And yeah, I think it all comes down to what plan they're going to make. We have to look for the future with stuff like the NFL.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think, honestly, a lot of important factors considered for the future for sports. A lot of teams and a lot of leagues trying to still figure out how to move forward. I really do believe it's going to come down to several factors, and it's going to come down to just if players feel safe and if the league can guarantee player safety. That's pretty much going to wrap up today's video. I know this has been more of a serious and more somber type of video. It's just that we wanted to kind of discuss how we feel about how sports are going to move forward and how sports are now, and just some of the types of some of the topics that we want to just discuss. But hopefully you guys did enjoy, and if you have any comments or anything that you want to add to the discussion, let us know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Hopefully next video can be a little bit more uplifting and a little better, and obviously a little bit more enthusiastic and a little bit more
uplifting,
right?
More. A little bit better for the ears,
right? Better than just
everything's terrible.
Everything is shit right now. Instead of us just being cheerful for the future, cheerful about what's happening now, and just talking about things, it's more. This video has been more like, things are shit. We can't fix it.
We'll come back with a good video. They'll have a bunch of laughs. But for right now, we just wanted to talk about this, just to kind of air our thoughts out and kind of talk about personal experience about what do you think is gonna happen.
Right, and just honestly, just as just looking at it as somewhat of a young person's perspective, and most importantly, a fan's perspective of sports, of someone that loves sports, and two people that love sports and just love talking about sports.
Yeah.
And just talking about the future and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys did enjoy. Leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Again, if you want to add anything to the discussion, let us know in the comment section down below. And hope you guys have a good day, and take it easy.